engine of choice and type in Sarasota County Know Your Level, and that'll take you to the Sarasota County government website.
Frank Lama, Solid Waste Manager, City of Northport. Here today with Mario Vendetti, planner schedule for the City of Northport, Solid Waste Division. We're going to talk about bulk pickups today, how to schedule bulk pickups, what should go out and what should not go out to the curb, where to place the items, and then what happens if you have more than what's allotted for you for the year for a bulk pickup. So Mario, I know we call 941-240-8050, talk to our customer service reps.
That's correct.
About how to schedule a bulk pickup. How else can we do that?
You can also go on our website, northportfl.gov, click on solid waste, and fill out a bulk request form.
Excellent, excellent. So Mario, what about if a person wants to place it out, what should they place out? What's the right thing, what's the wrong thing?
Basically, Frank, anything that doesn't fit in the container, that's garbage, is going to go curbside. We're going to stay off driveways. What's not accepted is tires, chemicals, stuff like that. You can put yard waste out, that's considered bulk, but just make sure it's separate from the garbage pile.
Okay.
Yard waste is a separate pickup.
So what happens if I use all my bulk pickups already?
Good question. So you can have more, but you just have to pay. It's going to be $16.50 a cubic yard, and that's length times width times height divided by 27 is 1 cubic yard.
Any questions? Of course, let us know. Give us a call, 941-240-8050.
Water in a swale, that's kind of the ditch by your house, is not flooding. After a storm event, water should be in that swale up to 72 hours after the storm. That allows the water to be filtered, to get the stuff that came off our roofs and off the road out of the water so that when it reaches the habitat, it no longer has those contaminants in it. It also provides an opportunity to slow down water so that the water doesn't go so fast that it erodes the roadways or any other infrastructure. So when you see water in a swale, if it's only been, up to 72 hours since the last rain, that is not flooding, that is doing its job.
Good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. It's 10 a.m. We're in City Chambers, and I call the City Commission Workshop meeting to order, regular meeting to order. Commissioners present, Commissioner DeVal, Commissioner Langdon, Mayor Stokes, Vice Mayor Emmerich, Commissioner Petro. There's a quorum present for the meeting. Also present, City Manager Fletcher, Interim City Attorney Golan, City Clerk Faust, Board Specialist Lane, Deputy Chief Morales, and Fire Chief Titus. Daniel, would you do us the honors?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Without extra credit for leadership was. He needs all the extra credit he can get. I am looking for a motion to approve the agenda. So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Langdon to approve the agenda. Let's vote, folks. And that passes 5-0. Moving on. City Clerk, public comments? No public comments. How about announcements?
The current vacancies for the following boards and committees include the Art Advisory Board, Auditor Selection Committee, Charter Review Advisory Board, Citizen Tax Oversight Committee, Community Economic Development Advisory Board, Environmental Advisory Board, Fire Firefighters Pension Trust Fund Board of Trustees, Historic and Cultural Advisory Board, Joint Management Advisory Board, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and Veterans Park Advisory Committee. Sarasota County Advisory Council vacancies include 1 resident in Northport to serve on the Citizen Advisory Committee. If anyone would like more information, please see the city clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to the consent.
Mayor,
Sure.
I just have a question. On the auditor selection committee, there's a position open for a commissioner. What do we know about that?
I can tell you that since I've been here, we have not had a meeting for that. And the city manager of finance might be able to answer a little better as to how often we do have those, because I think they coincide with when the city has an audit. And then I think at that time is when we would appoint a commissioner to the board. Otherwise, commissioners will come and go. And
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to consent agenda. City manager, any item been pulled?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All righty, public comment? Then I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make it. I move to approve the items on the consent agenda as presented.
Got a motion by Commissioner Langdon, seconded by the Vice Mayor to approve the consent agenda. There's nothing else to it. Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Moving on to public hearings. I need a motion to direct city clerk to read by title only.
Second.
Got a motion by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Langdon to request the city clerk to read by title only. Go ahead, let's vote on this one. Commissioner Duval.
Apologize.
It's okay. And that passes 5-0. City Clerk.
ordinance number 2025-13, an ordinance of the city of Northport, Florida, approving the Imagine School on Price Boulevard development agreement for the construction and maintenance of central water and wastewater facilities, the construction and maintenance of 2 bridges, and the maintenance of retention ditch R588 for the property located north and south of East Price Boulevard and east of North Toledo Blade Boulevard, providing for findings, providing for approval, providing for filing of approved documents, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. City Manager, your item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will introduce Mr. Gabriel Quintus, our Deputy Development Services Assistant Director, to introduce the item.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I'm Gabriel Quintus. This is the first reading of ordinance 2025-13. For some background information on this, associated site development and infrastructure plans are currently under review by the Development Review Committee. No waivers to the ULDC have been requested thus far. The proposed development site comprises 4 parcels totaling approximately 23.935 acres and is zoned corridor with a future land use designation of high intensity corridor. The site is located along East Price Boulevard and is proposed to contain an approximately 139,500 square foot educational facility catering to students from kindergarten through high school, accommodating up to 1,500 students. The facility will include 2 gymnasia, 2 cafeterias, an athletic field, and a playground designed for younger students. The school site will incorporate essential infrastructure, including water and wastewater facilities and a stormwater management system. Ingress and egress points are proposed along East Price Boulevard and Glenbrook Boulevard. The Imagine School at Northport currently contains 2 locations near Toledo Blade Boulevard. And according to the developer, the new campus, they hope to open the new campus in time for the school year beginning in the fall of 2026. Existing campuses are intended to be relocated to the proposed educational facility. The contents of development agreements such as this one, are governed by Section 228 of the ULDC and Florida Statute Section 163.3227. This development agreement outlines the developer's responsibilities associated with constructing and maintaining central water and wastewater facilities. It also encompasses the construction and maintenance of one roadway and one pedestrian bridge proposed to be constructed over retention ditch R588, along with the maintenance of retention ditch R588. Parties to the development agreement include the developer, Imagine School at Northport, the owner, Forest Plaza LLC, and the city. The term of the agreement is 10 years with 2 automatic extensions built into the agreement per the request of the developer. Improvements required to maintain the city's adopted level of service requirements will be required to be provided concurrent with the impacts of the development. Notices of intent to consider the development agreement have been advertised pursuant to Florida Statute Section 163.3225. And staff recommends that the commission move ordinance number 2025-13 forward for second reading. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners? Nothing to this item? No questions? You guys are good. All right. Public comments? Then I'll close this public hearing. Request a motion.
Move to continue ordinance number 2025-13 to second reading on June 4th, 2025.
Right, I've got a motion by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner DeVal. Continue ordinance 2025-13 to second reading on June 24th, 2025. Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Moving on to resolutions. B, resolution number 2025-R-33. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Northport, Florida, identifying an inventory list of city-owned real property sites that are appropriate for use as affordable housing, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. City Clerk, I guess you can reiterate.
You just did her job, sir.
I know. Then we're good, in which case, City Manager, it's your item. Sorry, I was a little bit,
Got excited.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I still want to introduce Mr. Gabriel Quintus, our Assistant Director for Development Services, for a staff presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Resolution number 2025-R-33 proposes to approve the inventory list of all real property within the municipal limits to which the city or any dependent special district within its boundaries holds fee simple title, which is appropriate for affordable housing. During the workshop session held on May 5th, staff presented a longer list of city-owned properties for initial consideration and revision if necessary. This list is abbreviated to include only those properties that were determined to be appropriate for affordable housing. Got a short presentation here. Okay, so Florida Statute Section 166.0451 requires that by October 1st, 2023, and every 3 years thereafter, each municipality prepare such inventory list as is presented today. And there are specific requirements that the inventory list includes, so the address, legal description of the property. If you recall at the last meeting that we had a whole lot more information, but we've abbreviated that information to meet the requirements of the statute. A total of 141 parcels have been identified as suitable for affordable housing. The law allows the disposition of property for affordable housing in the following ways: long-term land leases requiring the development and maintenance of affordable housing. It can be offered for sale and the proceeds used to purchase land for the development of affordable housing or to increase the local government fund earmarked for affordable housing. It can be sold with a restriction that requires the development of the property as permanent affordable housing. Property may be donated to nonprofits for construction of permanent affordable housing, and municipalities or special districts can also make property available for the production and preservation of permanent affordable housing. And that concludes my presentation. Staff recommends approval of this resolution. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, Commissioner Langdon.
Thank you, Mayor. If a property is on this list, are we required to make it available for affordable housing, or could we
Yes,
do
ma'am.
something else with that
So
property?
it would be required to be allowed to be disposed of in one of the ways that are permitted by the statute.
Thank you. I'll just make a comment. I'm just feeling a little unsettled before our budget conversations to approve this list of properties, because we might find that we want to do something else with those properties. So I'd prefer to defer a vote on this until after budget.
Question for you. Because we have to make them available under the statute, does that necessarily preclude us from, if nobody's approached the city to utilize those properties for affordable housing, is the city restricted from being able to do something else with them?
So the process preceding this would have included the identification of any that would serve a public purpose. Typically, once it's on the list, it's considered available for use in one of those, in the manner specified by the statute.
Right,
One of those
but if
options.
the city decided it wanted to build something on it, something unrelated to affordable housing, could we do it?
That would be, it's a good question. I would have to get back to you on that, because typically, once this is available, we have determined that these are affordable housing sites in the city, or potential affordable housing sites. And if we have not previously identified a public purpose, then it might be difficult to argue that.
So forevermore, like, these properties would be set aside for affordable housing and the city could never do anything else with them?
We could potentially just revisit the list and identify public purposes that were not previously identified, and then justify it in that manner.
What if we only wanted to put half of them on the list? Are we allowed to do that?
I mean, the law does require that any surplus properties that are not intended for a public purpose, but instead just available without any specific intended purpose, be published on this list.
What criteria determines other use? In other words, if we just said, like, gee, while we're not ready to spend money to do something with certain of these properties, we believe that we have, we could cite intended uses for a number of these, and that would exclude them from the list theoretically.
Right.
And all we would have to do is, we wouldn't have to, we're not forced to do something with them. We just have identified that there are other uses.
There are other public uses for them. Yes, sir. You could do that. I mean, we could prepare justification in that manner.
That's interesting.
Pocket Park, for example.
Yeah. So would we, obviously there's a need for affordable housing and, but 100 and, what was it, 40?
41,
some odd
I think,
properties.
yeah.
Once we were to say, these are cool, okay, they're available for affordable housing. If this year somebody came to us and proposed a great project that would have great public good for the city and its citizens, we would be precluded from utilizing that property?
Not necessarily. If we could identify a public purpose to it, then we could revisit the list and then adopt the list by resolution.
But we'd have to revisit the list every time.
Let me get, if I can jump in.
Sure.
So Florida statute, section 166.0451 is what controls here, which is what requires us to produce this list every 3 years. And it, in section 2, provides for what these properties may be used for. if you'd like me to give you a quick summary of what it provides, it says that the inventory list adopted may be used for affordable housing through long-term land leases requiring the development and maintenance of affordable housing, offered for sale, and the proceeds used to purchase land for the development of affordable housing or to increase the local government fund earmarked for affordable housing, sold with a restriction that requires the development of the property as permanent affordable housing, or donated to a nonprofit housing organization for the construction of permanent affordable housing. Alternatively, the municipality may otherwise make the property available for use for the production and preservation of permanent affordable housing. And then it gives a definition of what affordable housing means under the statute. So those are what the uses of these properties can be used for once identified.
So why wouldn't, and these are properties the city owns,
Correct.
why wouldn't we want to take the time to go through this list and prune out any that might have any potential other economic benefit or social benefit to our city, non-affordable housing related, before we went ahead and approved this list? Because then we just have to come back again and revisit every time. I mean, this
So
is,
the statute requires, if I may, statute requires that we identify those that are appropriate for affordable housing, and then it says that they may be used for those purposes. It doesn't say that they must be used for those purposes, that they can be used for other purposes as well.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I can address the process leading to this. We submitted this to all of the departments that would have had a concern regarding a potential property that was on the list. And we did remove some of them that departments had identified were could potentially be used for public purposes. So we went through that for about 2 months before we submitted this list.
what if the city wanted to sell some of that surplus real estate just to generate revenue for the city? And it wasn't going to utilize it on its own, but let's say we identified the need to build a park out east, and we wanted to raise the money to do it without tapping property tax or any of the district funds or anywhere else. And we said, gee, we have these 5 parcels that really are surplus, and we want to just sell them off, as long as whoever bought them, was buying them, understanding what the city's allowable uses were for those, generates revenue for the city, which would then in turn allow us to go build a park somewhere where before we wouldn't have had the money to do it. I guess my concern is once you put these on the list, now you got to come back and revisit it. Why wouldn't, just seems like.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, we can revisit it as often as we want. If we do identify a public purpose to one of these properties on the list, then we could remove them from that.
And there's just the fact that we put it on the list, for the simple reason we put it on the list, we could simply remove it from the list.
Once we've identified a public purpose for those properties, in the other jurisdictions that I've worked in, we haven't had an issue come up where we've had to remove these from the list, but it would probably be a question that we'd have to research a little further, because that would be somewhat new, at least to me.
Yeah, well, the only reason I say is, the definition of public purpose, is that, how broad is that? Is it broad enough to allow the city any reason whatsoever to remove it from the list? If that's the case, then it's probably a little easier to leave it on the list. I just, in an economic environment that we're in, where we're trying to marshal our resources everywhere we can to just set aside 140 properties, if there were any encumbrances or any difficulties in removing them, if we saw any value to it. I just want to make sure that once we do this, we aren't trapped or come back and say, well, we put it on the list and now, we have to justify it's the public use. Well, what does that mean? What if we just want to sell it and generate revenue?
I think, if I may, so the statute requires that the city identify those that are appropriate for the public housing. Now, if the city and staff determine that they are no longer appropriate, they would come back with a resolution amending that, for that list.
I get the appropriate side of it. What I'm not okay with is public use, the definition of public use. Is there any restriction to public use? I mean, if the commission decided it wanted to sell 3 properties to generate revenue for whatever reason, nothing more than to fund our fund balance, to build a park, to do whatever the city decided to do with that money, are there any restrictions under that definition of public use? Is there a hurdle we're going to have to overcome? That's what I'm concerned about, because I don't know what the definition of public use means. That's what I'm kind of looking for.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, from a staff perspective, when we look at public use, we look at it fairly broadly. And if there is any reason that the city may need that property, then we would determine it to be a public use. Now, I can't speak to whether the definition has been adjudicated in a court of law with respect to this statute. But typically, from a staff perspective, we would look at it broadly. And if there is an identified public use, then we would remove it from the list.
Anything from your standpoint, Michael, that you see?
No, sir. We would, if the board would like us to research that item, we can get you a deeper answer, but on the surface, it appears as though, well.
All right, let's hear what's my fellow commissioners. Commissioner DeVal.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On your slide presentation, there is one of the bullets says that may be offered for sale and proceeds used to purchase land for the development of affordable housing or to increase the local government fund earmarked for affordable housing. So that's one of the possibilities of sale. My second comment has to do with the beginning, the overview. It says, holds fee, simple title, which is appropriate for use as affordable housing. Who gets to judge what's appropriate? And this list, I went through the list and I saw a number of streets in localities. A number of them were within walking distance of my own home. My own home is in a single-family residential zone. And now I'm seeing that there are properties, and these are basically your standard quarter-acre lots that are listed as available for affordable housing. Now, affordable housing meaning a small house, like a tiny house, under 900 feet, 750, 900 feet, that may be acceptable to residents. But to have somebody come in and say, oh yeah, well now we're going to build a 3-story affordable housing complex in this neighborhood. To me, that's not acceptable. And
I can address that.
Based on that alone, I will not go for this. I want to see this list gone through and see those properties in residential areas basically protected.
Mr. Mayor, if I may address Commissioner's question. So this statute does not preempt local zoning. They would have to comply with local zoning regulations. So if a quarter-acre lot that's zoned single family is identified, they would have to meet the zoning requirements for use, setbacks, anything else that's in that zoning district.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to say the same thing. I tend to remember Ms. Elena making reference to this, that local zoning laws, even though there was some properties on this list that looked like they were right in the middle of, like you said, single family, quarter-acre lots, like they can only be used for that. In other words, it could be affordable, but you can't just put up an apartment building there.
Right.
Still, the locals, okay, I get that part. That's good. Well, you got anything else, Dave?
Nope.
No? Mr. Langdon?
Yeah, just based on this conversation, I'm still a little uncomfortable with the restrictions, the definition of appropriate, or are we locked in? Can we then, and I like the mayor's example, because we know we're going to face this out east. We have one park out east, and it's half the city. So we know we're going to have to acquire property out there. And so I see a very legitimate use of these parcels to sell, so we can use the proceeds of that to buy land for a park. And I don't want to get hung up on this and try to change this list in a couple of years and, oh, we can't do that because it doesn't fit the requirements. So I'm just really thinking, I would like all of us to have an opportunity to go through this list and cull it out, because I certainly don't want to be hampered in terms of how we might use these properties in the future. So I think I would have to be a no on this today.
I know, Vice Mayor, you're in the queue, but just to maybe solve Commissioner Langdon's issue, it's the definition of public use, and maybe you guys could speak to that. Like,
Good morning. Since my name came up, I thought I'd come on down. Elena Ray, Director of Development Services. Wanted to kind of bring you into awareness of how some of this was done, and also a couple of requirements. One, we are statutorily required to update this list every year. So not only are we required by law to adopt a list, but then we have to review it and amend it every year. So this is a process that will come before you on an annual basis. Number two, in order to get to the list that you have before you today, staff, and not just planning staff, all departments, department heads for public works, utilities, parks and rec, the city manager's office, the assistant directors, the operations people. We had dozens of people in multiple departments who reviewed a list that was much, much longer than what you see before you today. I can't remember how many parcels, I want to say like 1,200 parcels. And they reviewed it for things, when we say public use generally refers to infrastructure or parks projects. So it was roads, stormwater, drainage, parks, utilities. All of those types of things are considered public use. Those are what they were reviewed for.
And if I may also, we looked at, so we worked with Public Works as well to identify properties that may be needed for access to our stormwater facilities, and we removed those properties as well.
Lori Barnes, Deputy Director. To give you a little bit more information about how Planning and Zoning Division approached this list before it even went out to the Road and Drainage District, Fire, Parks and Rec, City Manager, all of the other departments. First, we looked at zoning. Does the zoning district for that property allow a residential use? Then we looked at existing city facilities in the area, whether that be an existing fire station, an existing park, an existing drainage right-of-way, an existing stormwater pond, and if they were adjacent and could possibly be used for expansion of those facilities, we took those off the list. We took anything off the list that would not preclude the city from retaining it based on provisions in the Live Local Act. Then we looked at the capital improvement plan to see if any of those properties were identified for future capital improvement projects. Then we sent the list out to all of the other departments, and we reduced the list even further where there were instances where road and drainage or fire or parks said, we'd really like to retain this for a future use. So, the list before you does seem substantial, but it did begin with about 1,200 parcels. And we very carefully vetted what would be considered appropriate for affordable housing before we brought it to you.
And with the concern about affordable housing in single-family areas, as it was mentioned, if all you're allowed is one dwelling unit on a parcel based on that zoning district, that's still all you will get with affordable housing. Habitat for Humanity is one organization that utilizes this program a lot. In other jurisdictions, they'll come in and they'll build a house for someone. Some of the veterans groups that build homes for disabled vets or former vets, they will acquire these homes and then give them to the family. We have new to the city. There's a builder who builds affordable housing, single-family homes, small homes. That's another use where they're selling those homes to an individual significantly below market rate in order to get people into homes. So if one house is all that's allowed for a single-family lot, whether it's affordable or not, that's all that's allowed. So just to alleviate that concern regarding the single-family zoning.
And to add to that, if the property's in an R1 district, there is a minimum living area square footage in the ULDC that will need to be applied. The home will have to be compliant and meet the minimum 900 square feet if it's an R1 zoning district.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Elena. Those were the questions that I was going to ask, and I wanted them in the record on, we are required to do this. But you had mentioned that we review this every year. I thought it was every 3 years. Is it yearly or 3 years?
It is annually. Keep in mind, the whole point of this from the state level is to require jurisdictions to use surplus properties for affordable housing. It is a preemption for us as that has been used frequently. But the Live Local Act did put a lot of requirements on the local jurisdictions to enable, and not just enable, but facilitate development of affordable housing, whether it be single-family homes or multifamily homes. And one of the ways that they are doing that is by forcing the jurisdictions to identify properties that are needed for a public use. And typically that is based off your capital improvement plan. And if you don't have a use for it, and not just to sell it and raise funds, but a public use, then it's considered surplus. And the way the state has designed this is your surplus property must go towards affordable housing, or at least be offered for affordable housing.
And you would not be allowed to sell it? That's where my hangup is on this. Yeah, I didn't mean to jump the line.
And that's something that I think our city attorney's office may need to do some more research on, and we may need to do some more research on, because if it's considered surplus and the city hasn't already sold it or hasn't already offered it for sale, then under the statute, the intention is for it to be offered for affordable housing. So I think we would need to do some more research on whether we could then sell off the properties that are on this list for a different use, even to just generate funds. I think there is an intent to prohibit the city from using it for other things if they didn't identify those things. We can take properties off the list if we identify a use for it.
But only public use.
Right.
Only public use, and that's my problem here. This is property that's owned by the city that technically or theoretically belongs to the citizens of the city, okay, if you want to take that path. And I get that the state preempted us here, but at the same time, once something goes on this list, now, unless it fits the definition of a public use, we can't even sell it under any circumstances. Why not just put 5 properties on this list instead of 114 and put the rest up for sale?
If the city can find a public, if the city identifies a public use, then they can take it off the list. But yes, this is the state saying, if your capital improvement plan doesn't identify public uses, and if you can't reasonably say that this property is going to be used for public use, yes, this is the state forcing the city to offer those properties for affordable housing. Yes, this is a preemption, and it's a strong preemption.
And so forever, these properties just.
Not forever. If we, for instance, next year, as we go through our capital improvement process, I'm just going to give a hypothetical. Public Works says, you know what, we need a connection between this road, and the only way to do it is to use one of these properties on this list. We have now identified that as a public use, and that property could come off the list.
And there are also the 2 means of disposition that allow the sale. It does have a condition on it. So the one that requires a restriction that the property be developed as permanent affordable housing, and then the other that the proceeds be used for the purchase of additional land for affordable housing.
This is the first time that this list is being required now because of preemption?
This is related to the Live Local Act. So it is something that the state required. It took us some time to go through this list. But, you know, I would say at this point, the city attorney may need to weigh in a little bit more, do some more research if that's needed on public use, and maybe if anything's been adjudicated through the courts on this. But otherwise, it's essentially up to the commission to determine whether something is public use or not. And we will take any property off the list that the commission desires to take off the list. We just need to be able to tie it to a public use.
Because here's my question. When's the deadline? When is this list required to be produced?
It was already required. So
we're out of compliance.
Yes, sir.
Already out of compliance.
A little longer.
So if we decided, I mean, do we have, and again, these are questions like probably have to be answered from a legal standpoint, but what if we want to take 50 of these properties and put them out for sale right now, put them on the market, we want to sell them off. Could we do it? We haven't added them to the list yet. They're not on a list. There is no list yet. Could we not do that?
I would say that's not a question for us.
Oh, no,
So, yeah,
I know, it's a legal question.
Right.
I assume, but you see what I'm saying? I just, first of all, the other question, which nobody's asked, is what's the fair market value or the appraised value of these 114 properties total? 1 million, 5 million, 20 million?
I don't believe appraisals have been done on all of these properties. That's something that would cost the city probably a significant amount to do the appraisals for each one of them. We can look at what surrounding properties are being offered for, you know, but there hasn't been any work at this point to.
But you see, city attorney, where I'm looking to, my concern is the city has an asset here or a group of assets. Once it goes on, this list has never been created. We're out of compliance, so we haven't filed it yet and gotten it done. But because of that, maybe that's a silver lining. If we determine that, you know, half these properties should just be sold off right now, let's put them on the market, get rid of them. Get rid of them, generate revenue for the city. Haven't gone on the list. Once they go on this list, we are trapped. They are public use, however you want to define them. They either have to tie back to affordable housing or some other public use, which, you know, certainly is restrictive. You know, I mean, let's hear what the rest, I do apologize, Commissioner, that I jumped right over you. Commissioner Langdon, go ahead.
No, that was me. I wasn't done, but now I'm done.
Okay,
You took my spot, sir.
okay. I thought you were done.
No, I wasn't. You didn't even ask. But I'm good. Thank you.
I really would like to see, we haven't even started budget conversations yet. I sort of had a question for Director Fundheller, an unfair question, which is, did you review this list specifically to identify desirable saleable properties that we could sell and put those proceeds in a fund to purchase land out east for parks? And I suspect the answer is no. I wouldn't have expected her to do that. But I would like to have the latitude to do that.
Good morning, Sandy Funheller, Parks and Recreation Director. That was not the exercise
Right.
for this. The
I knew it
exercise
wasn't,
was
yeah.
for affordable housing, and then if
Right.
we saw properties that would serve a future public purpose, we
Right.
had those pulled off. So I think that's a whole nother exercise.
It is a whole nother, a different thing, yes.
Thank you.
That I'd like to see us do, because we know we need parkland out east, and I don't know where that money is gonna come from. So I'm thinking we need to dig into this a little bit more before we file with the state a list of properties for potential affordable housing use. I'm done.
Ma'am. Mr. Duval?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One thing I noticed on at least one of the properties is that it's located on one of our north-south canals. Now, who's to say that that property on this list at some point may be required by Public Works for an access point to that canal? Secondly, for many years, we've been waiting for Price Boulevard to be widened. And along the way, I've heard many comments from people who say, why are they still building houses on Price Boulevard if they're going to be widening it, if they're going to need space for retention ponds? On this list, there are a number of properties that are listed as 0 West Price Boulevard. Now, I don't know exactly where they're at, but I presume, they're probably further west, than the high school, maybe headed up. And in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we're not going to do anything with them. But to allow new housing to go on where someday we may need to widen that road, I just can't go along with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Petro?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little bit confused because I'm reading online sunshine and specific stature. It says by October 1st, 2023, and every 3 years thereafter. So I do believe, from what I'm reading, and correct me if I'm wrong, the legal side of it, by October 1st, so we have time, and it's every 3 years, not annually. So what's the misrepresentation? Is it annually, or is it 3 years?
So I believe that they did some amendments just in this last session, and I believe it was this last session that they changed that to annually. We'll verify that. What you see in the online sunshine is from the original adoption, and any amendments that they made last year. The amendments that have been made in this legislative session haven't been updated in the online Florida statutes
It
yet.
says including 2025 special session C. So
Session C, well, most of those haven't been signed by the governor yet. But
If they haven't been signed by the governor, they wouldn't have been placed in here yet. But, and they told that, so the governor, the Senate and the House work with the governor to introduce bills to him slowly so that he can consider them. So it may not have even been presented. I cannot recall whether this bill has been presented, but The 1660451 does state every 3 years, but it also says October 1 of 2023. So we are now out of compliance with that requirement. This requirement has been in effect for a while in Florida. I believe that maybe the first resolution was in 2007 where properties were identified. But we, at this point, we don't have a whole lot of time, but it would be up to the commission whether to approve the resolution or not.
And second, I do believe our city is geographically young. We're only 45–50% built out. So to present this list and kind of give it away is premature. And I think it's not responsible on the commission to do it right now. I would definitely, I looked at the list. I couldn't go on individually to see the acreage. I would love to see how much each property is geographically, how big is it or how small it is. That would help a lot. Otherwise, we have to do it item by item, and that's time consuming. But I would rather wait on this, and I hear my commissioners, my fellow commissioners kind of echoing what I think. So this is just my opinion. And I do believe if we are not in compliance, but if it's in the works, that should be justifiable. But again, that's not up to me. It's legal part of it. So, but as of right now, as I'm digging more and thinking about this more, I'm reluctant to give a yes vote on this.
Thanks, Commissioner. Vice Mayor.
All right. Since we've been under, non-compliance and we're going forward with non-compliance, are we looking at any fines or penalties by being out of compliance?
So the statute does not establish anything explicitly, but I'd have to defer to legal on what penalties we might incur. But I don't see anything in this specific section of the statutes.
Well, and the reason I ask that is you're saying we're running out of time in your last presentation. And it was like, well, if we're running out of time, then are we getting to a deadline that we're going to start getting fined?
I should have said we're out of time more, because it should have been adopted by October 1st, 2023. It was not. And so we're out of time at this point. But I don't want to place the commission in a position where they feel forced to approve something that the commission's not comfortable with. But to Commissioner Petro's point, so during the workshop session, we provided those acreages. We provided additional information on all of those properties, and we identified those properties as highlighted on that sheet. So we can provide that again, but in order to be in compliance with the statute, we would have to move forward with, a resolution.
I mean, the only, just a comment, if it's not hurting us by being non-compliance, why would we rush into something just like everybody else is talking about up here?
And we can certainly address your concerns and bring this to another meeting of the commission if the commission so desires.
Okay, that's all I had, Mayor.
Yeah. Having read, it's been some time since I recall. I read that first Live Local law or piece of legislation that the state passed. I don't ever recall anything that talked about any punitive action. Other than, they have state authority, they could do whatever they want ultimately, but there wasn't anything that I read that said you're going to get fined this amount or that amount. What maybe the right direction here would be is to ask the city attorney's office to look into what constitutes public use, and would, if 6 months from now, the city were to determine that it wanted to take two parcels that accumulated a value of, say, $200,000 for, I'll just pick a number, and sell it because it would generate revenue that the city could then redeploy to build a park out east. You continue with that example. That to me is public use. At least that's Phil Stokes' definition of public use. And of course, I'm not a lawyer. That's why I say we need to hear that. Like, are we restricted? Once it goes on this list, does that fit the definition of public use? If that's so, then I would feel a lot better about it because we could utilize a hard asset of the city, a piece of property for a public use. Sell it, generate money, take that money and use it for a public use. But I don't know if that fits the legal definition or not.
So what staff can do, if it's the commission's desire, we can go back, we can work with the city attorney's office to look into that more, get you a better idea of what that means, get you an answer on the issue of sale, and take a look at the list to ensure that any of those properties that are along canals or major thoroughfares, that we've had another look at those to see if there's something that would be necessary to retain for a potential future use.
When the list was created, we had, I think, acreage, didn't we? But we didn't have any estimated value, if I recall.
No,
See, I'd love to know
appraisals,
if,
yeah.
you know,
Appraisals have not been done for these properties.
And I wouldn't really, certainly wouldn't advocate spending tax dollars to do appraisals on these properties, but I would love to know, just generally speaking, where we are. Are we talking, if this one's 5,000, this one's 6,000, that's 8,000? Or when you add them all up, are we talking a couple of $1 million? Are we talking a few $100,000? Because that has bearing, I think, on how we look at this, because any sale of any of these properties to generate revenue to utilize for what I would define as a public purpose, a park or whatever it might be, if they're substantial, then it might be worth pulling some of those larger properties off with that intended use in mind. But, again, I don't have the foggiest idea what any of this stuff would be valued at. Is there a way to even ascertain without doing a whole lot of work other than just saying, here's a comparable property, it's in a range of this, or it's less than 10,000, it's less than 5,000, it's for each of these, because we don't have any idea what we're talking about as far as value here. What if it's $5 million worth of properties, $10 million worth of properties?
So we would need to first answer that question of whether the sale of property to utilize those funds for some other purpose is an acceptable definition or meets the definition of public use. And then we would need to look at, other than looking to see what properties in the area of those properties have sold for or are on the market for, there's really no other way to
Right.
figure out what the value of those is without an appraisal, which I know we wouldn't want to do on all of those properties. But that will take some work.
Right.
So the first hurdle is to answer that basic question, then go through and look at each of the properties again with Public Works and Parks and others. But then if we can sell and use those funds for something else, we'll need to identify a guesstimate of the value of those.
And the one other piece that I personally would love to hear our legal department weigh in on is, even though we're out of compliance and even seriously long out of compliance, I get that, there hasn't been a list created. So if we were to identify a group of properties on this proposed list that we wanted to sell right now, could we do it? Could we do it? Since there is no list, there's no adopted list.
So the properties on this list I have been identified, if I'm correct, as surplus properties that have no purpose under the criteria that we're using to determine what a surplus property should be. So So I'm assuming that that process has already been gone through and determined. If the commission is looking for a more farther explanation about how that determination is made, what that criteria is that the staff uses to make that analysis, or they want to change that analysis in some way to set a price limit for sale.
But
that
until
might be
we
something
adopt this list, there is no list.
Until you adopt.
Until we adopt this list.
That's right.
There is not one property that is considered a surplus piece of property from the standpoint of this commission.
For
That's
purposes
my
of
concern here.
compliance with the statute, that's correct.
So
Right.
let me, if I can, the commission has identified previously, I believe it was 10 residential properties that were suitable for affordable housing. Those were adopted by the commission and they are on our website that was done years ago. So that has been, there is a list of 10 properties. This exercise that we're doing is a requirement of the statutes to go much further than that and look at all properties that the city owns to identify.
And again,
So that's what we're doing. As far as penalties, whether it would be brought by the state or whether it could be brought by anyone, that's another issue.
and I get that. I mean, we keep saying that. But what I would like to know is if the commission decided to sell 50 of these properties, put them on the market this coming month, since no list has been adopted, this list has not been, maybe those 10 were, but out of this 114 properties, or 140, however many there are on this list, none of them have been adopted by this commission. They are not technically considered surplus property by this commission. If we chose to sell 50 of them, what I'd like to know is legally, are we allowed to do that? That's an important question, because if not, then this whole conversation's kind of moot. We might as well just stamp disapproved and be done. But otherwise, I would say we ought to seriously look at how many of these properties we can put on the market and get rid of and generate revenue that isn't bound by this Live Local Act. We haven't yet created this list, and I don't want to adopt it or approve it, but I don't want to see a month or so go by and city attorney come back and not have the answer to this question. And that's the other question. One, what's public use defined as? And two, can we sell these properties now before we put them on the list? For whatever reason, we just want to sell them and generate extra cash for the city that we're going to use somewhere else. I mean, that's an important legal question to ask.
And those are questions that we can work with the city attorney's office on and bring back to the commission.
Cool. Commissioner Langman.
I was going to state, I think we've beaten this topic to death, and I'm ready to make a motion, but I see two of our fellow commissioners on the board. So when you're ready for a motion, I'd be happy to make it.
Commissioner Petro.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, you are correct. It was on the workshop May 6th, and with a square footage of each lot. I have to admit, I was not present at that workshop. I was out of state. It was my birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
No excuse.
My question is, I just don't want us to shoot in the foot. We have to be responsible with our taxpayers' money. I do believe we identified the list, and when I say we as a city, and I find it ironic that we do not have any input into identifying which properties, yet we are asked to vote on it. So I would like to postpone it and maybe identify larger properties that can be beneficial for sale of the properties. Basically, kind of repeating myself, but there's a lot of legal questions on what can be defined as public use. I mean, it's so broad. You have one opinion, I can have another one. So many other people have. Each one of us can have a different definition of that. So I think not to rush this thing, we have to kind of come to a consensus as far as public use And like I said, our city's so young geographically that I don't want to be in a rush to just present this list as available. And then, you know, we miss financially, we miss on parks and recreation and quality of life would be compromised. So I don't want to do that. Just repeating myself, but I just want to make sure that we want to identify and have input ourselves as a board.
Commissioner Duval.
Yes, two things. Number one, I think this list needs to be pared down. As I said, a property that's along a waterway, we may want to use for something else. I don't believe it belongs on the list. Something on West Price, I don't believe it belongs on the list. But secondly, I want a clarification, and I think this is a legal thing. The mayor is speaking about selling these properties to use the money for public good. I don't see anything in here that says we can sell the properties and use the money as revenue. What it says is that we can, one of the bullets is
Use it for public.
offered for sale and the proceeds used to purchase land for the development of affordable housing or to increase the local government fund earmarked for affordable housing, not for general public use. So if something goes on this list, that money, if we sell it, can only be used towards affordable housing. And that's why I want to see this list really pared down, or else start selling public, you know, properties owned by the city now before they go on the list. Thanks.
With that,
You want me to take a
we're
shot?
ready, Commissioner. Go for it.
Okay, I move to
Mayor,
delay.
before you make any motion, may I just say, as your attorney, I recommend you come into compliance with this law as quickly as possible. And trust that staff has gone through this list and under their criteria for surplus property to properly identify these properties. And although it might not be a monetary fine that you face, it might be other litigation or liability that the city might come into if they don't comply with this law quickly. Thank you.
I would just say we're 2 years out of compliance, a handful of months more. What difference does it make? So let me give it a shot. Thank you, City Attorney. You tried to save us, but too little, too late. I move to delay adoption of resolution number 2025-R-33 to a later date to enable additional planning for future use and further research to include, but not be limited to, a definition of public use, and can some of those properties be sold for general use?
Do I have a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Yep, and, all right. Any further discussion? Okay.
I'm for it.
Public comment? Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
Okay.
Wanted to check. Wait, I have my back, Vice
thank you,
Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right, you want to read that motion back for us, please, City Clerk?
To continue resolution number 2025-R-33 to a date to be determined to enable further review for use planning and further research to include but not limited to public use definition and sale of properties for general use.
Thank you, ma'am. If there's nothing more to that, commissioners, let's vote. That passes 5-0. All righty. Didn't figure we'd get bogged down on that one for that long. Moving on to C, resolution number 2025-R-39. City Attorney?
City Clerk?
Or City Clerk, I'm sorry, would you read by title only?
Resolution number 2025-R-39, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Northport, Florida, accepting a non-exclusive sanitary sewer and access easement on portions of property lying in Section 33, Township 39 South, Range 20 East, Sarasota County, Florida, and bearing Sarasota County Property Appraiser Parcel Identification Number 078-506-1000, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for filing of documents, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. City Manager, your item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The original plat for Welland Park Village E was recorded and identified 30-foot wide utility easements in various areas where the underground infrastructure is going to be located for lift station number 125. Due to an unforeseen underground infrastructure conflict, a sanitary sewer pipe had to be constructed outside of the platted easement. Therefore, this additional sanitary sewer and access easement for the operation and maintenance of the sewer pipe is necessary. We ask that you approve resolution number 2025-R39 as presented. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any question on this one? It's pretty straightforward. Any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
As the city manager mentioned, this is just basically a geographical, logistical problem where the ground didn't support where it was planned. So it's just an adjustment of where the piping is going to go. It is an agreement, between West Villages and the city, and both. Well, I guess if we vote, the city will be agreeing on it, but I just don't think there's any question here as far as do we need to do this or not. It's something that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any public comment on this? With that, I'll close this public hearing. Request a motion on this one.
I'll make it. I move to adopt resolution number 2025-R-39 as presented.
Got a motion by Commissioner Langdon, seconded by the Vice Mayor to adopt resolution 2025-R-39 as presented. Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. City Clerk, any general public comments?
Yes, Al Pacouch? Al.
Actually, a couple comments on the first issue, of land use.
You have to come up here, sir.
Come down here, sir.
We need to get you on the record.
Thank you, Commissioners, for letting me speak. My name is Al Picus. I'm a realtor, longtime resident in Northport and member of the Northport Landowners Association. And I know you were talking about the use of lots that the city owns. And there's a few things as a realtor and real estate investor for the last 20 years in Northport. I would suggest that on any of these issues that relate to, the land values and all that stuff, you might want to talk with longtime realtors, landowners, and I would maybe even suggest an advisory committee on these kind of issues. One of the things you want to make sure that if you have on any of these lots, you don't have any gopher tortoises, because it's going to cost you $8,000 to relocate to any of these. Now that's the one issue where I'm fine with the gopher tortoises being around, but $8,000 is really prohibitive for any development on a lot. It might even be the same cost of the lot. There was one that had just spent $24,000 to remove 3 gopher tortoises. So we've got to get those costs way down somehow. We've got to find a resolution for that. Also, on another issue, you might want to have on any decisions you make, you might want to review the decision by a land use attorney. I respect, your city attorney here, but land uses, there's a lot of rules, especially now that we have SB 250 and the Berlin-Harris Act, which are prohibiting a lot of uses and so forth. So anyway, you might want to get a land use attorney. Actually, Punta Gorda is getting one and Fort Myers is getting one because there's so many issues relating to those issues, to those the laws relating to land use. So anyway, I thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right. On to Commissioner Communications. Commissioner Duval.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just the other day, I attended the Hometown Heroes Appreciation Event at the new Hadley Clubhouse as part of Heron Creek. I watched some of our firemen eating a meal, and I'm sure they appreciated it. I was present for the photo session where we met the student that graduated from Northport High School that won the vehicle that the city donates every year. I attended the annual Hurricane Expo at the Mullins Center. And one more thing, this is not a public event, but this is something that I'm passionate about. Yesterday on my way to City Hall, when I got to the corner of Cranberry and Price, there was a teenager on an electric bike with a younger child on the back. The younger child was wearing a helmet. As they waited, and they did wait, the younger child got off the bike and pushed the button for the crossing. When it turned white, gave the palm, said, "You can pass." Then that child got back on the bike. And before that bike moved, the teenager that was in control of it, he turned his head left and looked back on Price behind him to make sure that no one was going to turn that corner in the right turn lane and run over them. I was very impressed with how he handled himself. By the time he got to the next stoplight, I was standing there waiting for him, and I congratulated him, and I gave him a challenge coin and told him he's doing the right thing. The reason this was important to me is I travel up and down Price quite a bit now that I'm in office. And I see electric bikes, electric scooters every single day. And I watch even adults ignore the lights, ignore the traffic, and just dart across. Recently not inside Northport, but just outside of Northport, a young girl was critically injured. There were a lot of complications to that accident, but that young girl did go through a stop sign. Education is key here, and I really just want to emphasize that these things are becoming, they're just everywhere, and we're going to see accidents, and we should do everything we can to try to prevent those. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Langdon.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the city clerk's team for getting my activity report attached to this item on our agenda. Thank you very much.
All right. Vice Mayor. Nothing for you. Commissioner Petro.
Nothing for me, Mayor.
And nothing for me. Charter officers, city manager,
No, Mr. Mayor.
acting city attorney, and city clerk. Well, if there's nothing more, it's 11:16 and I adjourn this meeting.